Hello and welcome to another Mr. Carter Science Special. In this video we'll be looking at non-communicable diseases and the risk factors that are associated with those diseases and the evidence linking the risk factors to those diseases. So let's have a little think about disease first. What makes us ill? Well, a disease is a problem with a structure or process in the body that is not the result of injury. And there are two types of disease: communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases. Communicable diseases are diseases that are caused by microorganisms, that's fungi, bacteria and viruses. A disease-causing microbe is known as a pathogen, and communicable diseases are passed from one person to another person, and they will affect how the body works by causing symptoms. For example, the flu virus causes sneezing, headaches and a high temperature. In this video though, we are going to concentrate on non-communicable diseases, and these are diseases that cannot be passed from person to person. They might be caused by genes, in the case of cystic fibrosis, or they might be caused by your lifestyle, in the examples of lung cancer, heart disease and arthritis. These are all linked to factors present in your lifestyle. So have a look at this graph here. If you notice along the bottom, we have 10 different diseases mentioned: coronary heart disease, strokes, COPD, respiratory infections, lower respiratory infections, tracheal lung infections, HIV, diarrhea, diabetes, road injuries and hypertension. COPD is, or just to fill you in, is chronic obstructive pulmonary disorders, pulmonary meaning lung disorders. So out of these top 10 diseases in 2012, how many of them were communicable diseases? Well, there's only really 1, 2, 3 communicable diseases. And that means that in most countries across the world now, communicable diseases are not as big a problem as they used to be. The other 7 diseases are non-communicable diseases. These are diseases caused by genes, lifestyles and environmental factors. These are in effect diseases where our choices have an impact on whether or not we get the disease. So there are many risk factors for non-communicable diseases. For example, your age or your genes are factors that you cannot change. However, smoking, lack of exercise, diet and alcohol, these are known as lifestyle factors because you can choose to change them at any point. You can smoke more or less, you can increase or decrease the amount of exercise, you choose what to eat, you choose your alcoholic consumption. Ionizing radiation, UV radiation from the sun and second-hand smoke are all known as environmental factors. And these are factors present in the environment which can be linked to causing non-communicable diseases. Also on that list is carcinogens. These are chemicals or radiation that are linked and known to cause cancer. So your health can obviously be affected by a variety of different factors, and drawing graphs can help a scientist to see if there is a link, a correlation between a particular factor and your health. So if we measured your health on the y-axis of a graph and the particular factor on the x-axis, you may find that there is or is not a correlation between them. You might find that there is a positive correlation. As one factor increases, the other factor increases. There may be a negative correlation. As the x factor increases, the y factor decreases. And on this graph we have one result which doesn't fit that pattern, which is known as an anomaly. And then on our third graph we have no correlation here. You could choose to put a line of best fit through this graph here, but an equally suitable line of best fit may go there. or here. So we don't really have a clear line of best fit, so there is no clear correlation between our two factors. These descriptions, positive correlation, negative correlation and no correlation, will become incredibly important as we go through the next few slides. So if we have a look at this graph here, we have on our x-axis the annual income per person in US dollars. And on the y-axis we have the life expectancy at birth in years of a person born in a particular country. And you can see each of the red dots on the graph are different countries. And it's clear that there is a correlation, a positive correlation between these two factors. When we're describing these correlations, we must always use that magic sentence as the. And we always start with the x-axis. So as the average annual income per person increases, the life expectancy at birth increases. This is our positive correlation. It is not a proportional correlation because we don't get the straight line, we get a curve in this instance, but we can begin to start to think about why. Why does this occur? And we can begin to try and explain this. Does it mean just because we have a correlation that the average income causes an increase in the life expectancy at birth? Well, we don't have enough information on this graph to make that particular conclusion. But it could be that countries with a higher annual income will have better healthcare, better access to health insurance, better access to hospitals, to education, so people make better choices and therefore are able to live longer. And it could be the opposite is also true, that in low income countries, people there have less access to healthcare. The sanitation might not be as good. So we can begin to try and explain the trends that are shown. But it's important to remember that correlation does not necessarily mean causation. Just because there is a clear link, it doesn't mean that one factor causes the other factor. And that's illustrated quite nicely in this graph here, where again on the x-axis we have the years and on the y-axis we have the average global temperature. But we're also looking at the number of pirates, and that's our numbers written on the graph here. So it's clear to see that there is a negative correlation between the number of pirates and the average global temperature. As the average global temperature has increased year by year, the number of pirates has gone from 35,000 down to 17 and therefore has decreased. An increase in temperature. As the temperature increases, the number of pirates has decreased. But does this mean that, yes, there's a correlation? Of course there's a correlation, but does this mean that that correlation is the same as causation? Did the change in global temperatures change the number of pirates sailing the oceans? Well, clearly there is no causation. Yes, there is a clear correlation between those two factors, but no, there is no causal link. Here's another example. In this graph, again, we're looking at the years, as how the years change, and we're looking at the average number of cigarettes smoked per person per year. And we can also link that in on the other axis over here with the annual deaths from lung cancer per 100,000 of the population. And we can see that there is a positive correlation between the number of cigarettes smoked and the number of deaths from lung cancer. So in the 1900s here, you can see that the number of males smoking cigarettes increased all the way up to the 1980s, and there is a lag of about 20 years, and then the male cases of lung cancer increased. And we have the same for the women, and you can see that again from about 1920 onwards the numbers of females smoking increased, and then there was an increase in female lung cancer with a lag of about 20 years behind that. So there is a correlation between the number of cigarettes smoked and the number of cases of lung cancer experienced in both males and females. But does this correlation mean causation? So let's have a little think about that. Causal mechanisms. A key phrase for your exams is that correlation does not necessarily mean causation. Once a correlation has been identified, more research must be carried out to see if a causal mechanism exists. A causal mechanism explains how one factor influences another through a biological process. If a causal mechanism can be demonstrated, then there is a link between the two factors you have investigated. For example, there is a correlation between smoking and lung cancer because tobacco smoke contains carcinogenic chemicals that can damage DNA, cause mutations, and this can lead to uncontrolled mitosis, which is cancer. This is our causal mechanism. So in this example of our final graph down here, we can say yes, there is a correlation, and yes, there is a causal mechanism. So we can be certain as scientists that smoking causes lung cancer. However, in our pirate graph here, we can say that yes, there is a correlation between the temperatures and the number of pirates, but no, there is no causal link. With our top graph, the average annual income and the life expectancy, again there is a positive correlation, and it is likely that there are several causal mechanisms within that causing the average lifespan to increase in countries where there is a higher income. The impact of non-communicable diseases cannot be understated. Serious diseases have a human impact on the individual affected and of course their family. There's often a financial cost to the individual and the family as well. You might be required to pay for your treatment in certain countries. Local communities will also support diseased individuals either directly with time, care or money, or indirectly, as in the case of the UK, through taxes. And those taxes go to fund the NHS in the UK, the National Health Service. So although your treatment is free at the point of care, your treatment has been paid for by you and other people in the country through taxed income. Diseases cost a large amount of money both in treatment costs, individual loss of earnings, and costs to the overall economy. Non-communicable diseases currently affect more people than communicable diseases, so they have the greatest effect on a human and an economic level. And for that reason, it is important that we study non-communicable diseases and we identify those causal mechanisms that are suggested by the correlations seen in graphs. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please don't forget to leave me a comment below. Let me know what you've learnt, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.